Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Pauline, the Analyst. Have you ever needed to find your highest grossing product, your top performing salesperson, or even what was the peak website traffic in a day? If you have any questions about maximums, the SQL maximum function is all you need. So today I'm going to explain everything you need to know about this function. So let's dive in. So in our next video, I want us to cover 1. What Max does and its perfect use cases. 2. The key difference between Max and sorting for the top value. 3. A step-by-step setup with a sample database. 4. How to find maximums within groups for powerful analysis. And finally, real-world examples from sales, sports, and analytics. So on to our next segment, I want us to understand what Max is. So think of the Max function as your data spotlight. It finds the highest value in a crowd of numbers, the latest date in a series, or the last word alphabetically in a list of text. So 1, its core job is to return the largest value from a specified column. Then 2, like the minimum function, it completely ignores any null values. So on to our next segment, I want us to set up our player stats database. So let's switch it up and create a table for a gaming app to track player scores. This is perfect for Max. And for us to do that, we have to create our table. So we'll write create table, and our table name will be the player scores. So open your bracket, and then in our first column, we'll have the score ID. And since it's a number, its data type will be an integer, and this will be the primary key of the table. Next will be the player name. And since it's text, its data type will be varchar, and I do not want it to have more than 50 characters. Next column will be the game level, and this is a number, so its data type will be an integer. Next column will be the score, and since it's also a number, its data type will be an integer. Then my final column will be achieved on, and just from its name, this shows the date, so its data type will be a date. So close your bracket, highlight your query, and then execute it, and voila, we have created our table. So I need us to insert sample data into our table, and for us to do that, we'll be using insert into. Our table name is player scores, and we are inserting values into this table. So open your bracket. So for my first row, we'll have our score ID, which is 1, our player name, which is data diva, our game level is 1, our score is 2500, achieved on 1st of October 2024. My next row, the score ID will be 2, the player name is Query Queen, the game level is 1, the score is 3125. This was achieved on 2nd of October 2024. My next row will have the score ID, which is 3. Player name is Data Diva. Game level is 2. Score is 4500. Achieved on 5th of October 2024. On to our next row, our score ID will be 4. Player name is Query Queen. Game level is 2. Score is 4100. Then this was achieved on 5th of October 2024. So score ID is 5. Player name is the Schema Surfer. Game level is 1. Score is 2950. Achieved on 8th of October 2024. Next, score ID is 6. Player name is the Schema Surfer as well. Game level is 2. Score is 5200. This was achieved on 8th of October 2024. And then for my final row, we have the score ID, which is 7. Player name is Data Diva. Game level is 1. Score is 2700. Achieved on 10th of October 2024. So finish your query, highlight it, and execute it, and voila, 7 rows have been affected. So if I want to see the table, I'll just come and write select from the player scores. So highlight your query and then execute it, and voila, my table has finally been created. So on to our next segment, I want us to do a basic max demo. So let's start simple. The game developer asks, what is the highest score anyone has ever achieved on any level? So we'll start by writing select, and since we're looking for the highest score, we'll be using the maximum function. And highest score anyone has ever achieved on any level, that means we will be using the score column, and its alias will be all-time high score. And all this is from the player scores table. So highlight your query and then execute it, and then voila. So the highest score anyone has achieved is 5,200. This was simple, powerful, and to the point. One query, one answer. So on to our next segment, I want us to see how max can be used with group by. Now for the insightful part, let's use group by to find the high score for each level, which is much more useful for balancing the game. So number 1, find the high score for each game level. We'll start with select, and from all this, let's go back to our table. We're looking for the high score for each game level. As you can see, we have find the high score for each game level. So we are selecting from the column game level, and we're finding the maximum score. So max of the score column, and this will be the high score as high score. All this is from the player scores table, and we want to group by the game level. So let's highlight our query and then execute it, and voila. So we had 2 game levels. The first game level, its high score was 3125, and the second game level is 5,200. The next question, I want us to find the most recent date each player achieved a score. So we want to select, since you're finding the date each player achieved a score, let's go back to our table, execute. So we will be dealing with the player name as our first column, and we're finding the most recent date each player received a score. So the maximum of the achieved on column, and this will be as the last play date. All this is from the player scores table. Then we want to group by the player name. So highlight your query and then execute it, and we can see. So find the most recent date each player achieved a score. So the data diva achieved her last score on 10th of October 2024. The query queen achieved her last score on 5th. The query queen achieved her last score on 5th of October 2024. And finally, the schema suffer achieved his or her last score on 8th of October 2024. So I want us to understand that the max function, as you have seen from my screen, it finds the most recent or the latest date, which is perfect for finding last events. Okay, so on to our next segment, I want us to see how we can use having with the max function. Now let's filter our groups. The developer says, only show me levels where the high score is over 5,000. We need having to filter after the max calculation. And for that, we'll use select. And since we are looking at levels, let's go back to our table so that you can understand. This is my table over here. So since we are looking at tables, we'll be using the levels, game level column. And since we're finding high score, so the max of the score column, and this will be as the high score. All this is from the player scores table, and we want to group by the game level, having our max of the score column to be greater than 5,000. So this one filters on the aggregate results. So let's highlight our query and then execute it. and voila. So levels where the high score is over 5,000, as you can see, it's the game level 2, which the high score was 5,200. So on to our next segment. I want us to find how to find the row with the maximum value. So remember the pitfall from the minimum video? Let's solve it for max. We know the high score on level 2 is 5,200, but which player holds that record? So this requires a subquery to first find the maximum value and then find the row that matches it. So we'll write select from the player scores table where the score equals to, so open your bracket, select the maximum of the score column from the player's scores table where the game level equals to 2. So let's close our bracket, finish our query, highlight it, and then execute it. And voila. So this is a more advanced technique, but it's incredibly powerful for getting the full context behind your maximums. Okay, guys? So on to our next segment, I want us to understand real-world use cases. So where do we use the maximum function? Number 1, we have e-commerce, identifying the best selling product each month. 2, sales, finding the top performing salesperson per quarter. 3, the IoT, monitoring the highest temperature recorded by a sensor. And finally, finance, tracking the all-time high price of our stock. And finally, my next segment is a performance tip that I want to give you guys. This is the same tip as the minimum function. An index on the column you're applying max to is a huge performance win, especially on massive tables. The database engine can navigate directly to the value it needs. Very, very simple. That's the maximum function, your tool for finding tops and picks in any dataset. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for future tutorials. Got any questions or suggestions for future tutorials? Drop them in the comment section below. So until next time, happy coding!